Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and I'm super happy and mighty excited to talk about this brand new NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fred Wolf Series 2-pack. That's a mouthful, holy crap. So as if Bebop and Rocksteady weren't cool enough, now we have Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady, the awesome robotic cybernetic clones of the dastardly duo. This 2-pack is perfect for me, you know. Not only am I a fan of anthropomorphic animals like the Ninja Turtles and Battle Beasts, but I'm also a huge fan of robotic anthropomorphic animals like the Mega Man X bosses. And here's a deep cut for you, the enemies in the Kikaider anime. I never watched the live action show, so I don't know anything about it. So this set is like right up my alley, you know. Not to mention, there's some really awesome Bebop and Rocksteady accessories included here. Awesome and obscure. Like these guns especially are pretty obscure. And it's a shame because those guns look awesome. And like you can't see this yet, but it's like this cool drill gun. Just wait. It's pretty cool. They only appear once in the show. And it would have been cool if, you know, Bebop and Rocksteady could have used these every now and then just to switch things up a little bit. And then you have the parking meter and, you know, geez. Weaponry and electronic devices are usually pretty easy to find, you know, if I don't have a picture of them already. But day-to-day items like parking meters can be a little tricky to hunt down, you know. Usually I don't log everything the enemies interact with, so I was scratching my head a little bit, you know, with that one. You know, where did it come from? I was pretty sure that Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady didn't actually use a parking meter in the episode they appear in, and thankfully, after talking with commenter Jeremiah Napier, he filled me in on where this item comes from in the cartoon. So thank you, Jeremiah. You know, you saved me countless hours of trying to track this thing down. So let's begin. I got this 2-pack during NECA's Haulathon event. I bought mine online at Target when they were released on the second Friday. Can you believe the Toka and Razar didn't go up the third week? Like, don't even get me started on that one, you know. I was able to order Toka and Razar on the third day they popped up on the Haulathon website, but just like most other people, my order was canceled. So now I have to hunt them down. And I'm definitely not paying the hundreds of dollars that people are asking for on eBay. You know, screw that crap. The last time I went to my Target, they still actually had these 2-packs in stock, which was awesome to see them there, even though I had them. So, you know, hopefully if you've been trying to find these guys, you were able to find them. They come packaged in this standard NECA 2-pack packaging, you know. It's very reminiscent of the turtle van with the green on top and the yellow on the bottom. And on a side note, you know, I did order the turtle van, and if you were curious, yes, I am going to do a full episode when it comes out, and I'm going to compare it to tons of screenshots. I have an absurd amount of reference to look through and to share what I can in that episode, so, you know, stay tuned for that one. Man, with all the pre-orders and Haulathon figures that NECA put out over the past month and a half, you know, I hope that we don't see anything else from them until August. Seriously, give me a break already. You know, they must have, like, made out like nobody's business. The window in the front here is very nice and big, so you can see these two mechanical monstrosities, not to mention some of the very awesome accessories, like that bomb, you know, that's cool. And like I said, I know where that's from too, so we'll talk about it. On the side here, you can see that there is a nice shot of Robotic or Super Bebop. I like the gray starburst that's like behind him. You know, I think that really helps push the whole, like, you know, robotic style. I didn't really pay attention to that in the past 2-packs, you know, if all the colors matched. I think the last one I looked at was A-Stuck and Mutagen Man, and I'm pretty sure that A-Stuck had like a yellow starburst and Mutagen Man had purple. So, you know, like, I guess, you know, they've been doing that this whole time and I just did not pay attention to it. Now here is a Mighty Rocksteady, you know, very powerful looking dude. On the back here, you can see another shot of these guys. I kind of wish that they were a little bigger and like filled up that box a little more, but, you know, that's just me complaining. Like I said before, you know, that gun is such an amazing looking gun. Like, I love that thing. And, you know, just seeing Bebop here, Super Bebop, holding that parking meter is pretty awesome. Now, for a lot of this review, I probably am just going to refer to them as Bebop and Rocksteady just because it's simpler and I'm lazy, all right? So down at the bottom here, you can see that, you have some of the other figures that have come out recently. All these guys came out in 2021, so it would have been kind of cool if they would have included some 2022 figures. But, most likely these are the action figures that you're going to find when you go to Target looking for Ninja Turtle action figures. This description right here is just very, general Ninja Turtles. It has nothing to do with these guys or any of the accessories included, so there's nothing really worth going over there. You see how I whip that around? On the bottom here, the last thing we got to talk about here is it says Sculpt and Fabrication, John Matthews. Now, John, I can already tell that these guys are going to be super impressive, so it really looks like you did a mighty good job here. And that's it, I think I've, did a good amount of talking and wasted everybody's time long enough. And now it's time for me to open these guys up and move them around. Hopefully, there's no problems. Hopefully they all work out fine, got nothing broken. Or else, this is going to be a very short review. So I will talk to you in a second. Real quick, before I talk about the 2 action figures included in this set, I do want to talk about this picture of the Technodrome behind them. And I know what you're thinking. Boy, Raz Rentals going off on a tangent? I can't believe it. But, it's true. I want to talk about this picture of the Technodrome here. First I want to mention that it's printed on a nice, thick cardboard, which I think is unusual. I think all the other 2 packs have had their backgrounds printed on, very thin paper, which is, floppy and stuff like that. This is nice and sturdy. I'm going to cut this thing out and hang it on my wall because... I just think that it's an awesome picture of the Technodrome, I've always loved the way that the Technodrome looks when it's in the center of the Earth. You have that very cool looking orange lights, coming off of the lava on the front of the Technodrome. Not to mention those deep blue shadows on the other side of the Technodrome. Orange and blue complement each other so well in this shot. I kind of wish that there was a term for colors that work together like this. This shot is actually taken from the Season 3 episode, The Making of Metalhead. And yes, I did have a screenshot already. It was in my database, They definitely photoshopped this picture a little bit, though. I mean, everything is more compact. There's, some scenery missing from the cardboard piece behind the 2-pack. Not to mention they added that, rim light along the edge of the Technodrome there to make it stand out more. So, it's close, but like I said, they altered it a little bit. It's still good. I have a lot of Technodrome screenshots, inside and out. And, so I might as well talk about some other ones, here is another great one with the same color scheme. Although I think that I think it's done a lot better, obviously the shapes and stuff like that seem a little more dynamic and interesting. This is from the Gangs All Here. It looks great, And here is another one where it doesn't have that color scheme, but it's just a nicely done painting of the Technodrome in the center of the Earth. And this is from the Grippics. And, as an artist, I always, sit here and I look at pictures like this in awe and think about how awesome it was, or, how good of a job the artist did really creating the illusion of 3D shapes, all those tiles and those squares sticking out of it, really look 3D. One of my favorite exterior Technodrome scenes is from the episode Michelangelo's Birthday, where you start at the top, you start at the big eye, and it just kind of pans its way down to the bottom. And I don't know, just the blue hues of the Technodrome, the fact that you get to see all the different guys working on it, so you can get a better idea of scale with the Technodrome. It's just something I love as a Ninja Turtle fan, and just a fan of artwork. It just looks really cool. And again, the shapes all look amazing. The paint job here is so well done. And then, of course, you have shots like this from Dimension X story. And you're were kids hired to paint this thing? Obviously it's somewhat well done, but the shapes are so warped and clumsy, it doesn't, there's so many details missing from the Technodrome. Or how about this from Usagi Yojimbo, the colors are really, really nice. The mood is incredible, but it's so off model, Like I said, very nice color technique, but misshapen to all hell, you know? Like if you drew curved lines around this thing, like none of the perspective would make sense or anything. I don't know. So, you know, kind of cool, but also kind of weird. You also see this a lot too, where, you know, the painter just got a little lazy and decided to paint the Technodrome as like a smooth circle. Now, one final thing, and honestly, I could do a whole video where I'm just talking about the different, you know, art styles of the Technodrome and all the different rooms and stuff like that. And maybe I will someday, but finally for here, because I probably should talk about Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady. I love this shot from Slash, where you can see some of the levels of the Technodrome. It kind of reminds me of like when you were a kid and you'd have like those like, you know, find the item books or whatever. Like I had an X-Men and Spider-Man one. Like you would see Asteroid M, but like chunks of it would be missing. So you could see like different rooms and you could kind of imagine like how the X-Men were traveling from one room to the other and stuff like that. So here they are, free from the cardboard and plastic that once imprisoned them and ready to stomp the toidles. Stomp the toidles. I think that these super mutants look amazing. You know, they definitely look like a serious threat that the, you know, the turtles may not be able to overcome. One thing I'm really looking forward to, you know, looking at is how do these guys scale with the original Bebop and Rocksteady? You know, from what I remember, in the episode, these guys are supposed to be a little bigger and bulkier than the original Bebop and Rocksteady, and they're supposed to be able to, you know, rough them up with ease. The original NECA Bebop and Rocksteady are taller than they should be. So, you know, I'm kind of curious to see if these guys are around the same height as them. Are they bigger at all? I don't know. From, like, just glancing at these guys, I kind of feel like there's a bulkiness to them that appears more like, I don't know, Bebop and Rocksteady should look like. But also at the same time, their legs are probably a little too long. But, you know, we'll see once we get to scale. And I am going to talk about, you know, the scale of these guys next to the Turtles and the original Bebop and Rocksteady very thoroughly, you know, very excessively, but, and much more, you know, don't worry. I'm going to be talking for quite a while. But, you know, first, I got to discuss these two guys' first and only cartoon appearance. Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady first appeared in the Season 3 episode... Oh crap, what the heck is it called? Hang on a second. Where did I write it down? I know I have it somewhere here. Shoot. Okay, here, let's see here. Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady. As the episode begins, Bebop and Rocksteady are carrying out the Shredder's next evil scheme. Place the Mesmerizer on top of the Channel 6 news building. What's the Mesmerizer? Well, the Mesmerizer is a device that can turn humans into mindless zombies. You know, is it just a coincidence that they're putting this on top of the, you know, the TV transmitter? Once everybody in the city becomes mindless zombies, the Shredder wants to use them as his slaves. The Shredder had to send Bebop and Rocksteady to carry out this task because the Mesmerizer has no effect on mutants. At first, the mission is successful, but of course, these clumsy klutzes fall off the tower and crash into the newsroom, alerting the Turtles, who, of course, never miss an episode of the news. The guys head to the Channel 6 building in record time and scare off Bebop and Rocksteady. Well, for now at least. Back at the Technodrome, Krang and Shredder agree that these two, you know, imbeciles are incapable of doing anything right. So Krang decides to make cybernetic clones of them. Krang says that the super mutants are 10 times stronger and 10 times smarter than the original Bebop and Rocksteady. Now, I get the extra strength thing, but doesn't Krang realize that 0 smarts times 10 is still 0? I do have to mention that despite the episode name and the names of these toys, you know, in this action figure 2-pack, both Krang and Shredder refer to these super mutants as Super Rocksteady and Mighty Bebop. In order to show off their strength, the new Bebop and Rocksteady rough up the old Bebop and Rocksteady. Man, as if these guys weren't having a bad day already. Krang gives the Shredder a pretty amulet, which cancels the effects of the Mesmerizer. So now he can go himself to place the device on top of the Channel 6 news building. I think the amulet thing is like a little weird. Like, it looks like it should cancel out like a magic spell or something like that, and not necessarily an electronic signal. Like the device that Krang gives the Shredder here, I feel should be like something electronic looking, something that makes like a force field around him. I don't know. The amulet seems too plain. But anyways, Shredder travels with Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady to the Channel 6 lobby where, he instructs the cybernetic clones to stand watch while he travels to the roof to set up the mesmerizer. Unfortunately, after he turns on the mesmerizer, Shredder is shocked to learn that instead of turning everybody into zombies, it turns them into children. You see, not only did Bebop and Rocksteady fail in their mission, they actually damaged the mesmerizer in the process. Down below on the ground level, the turtles enter the lobby hoping to get to the Shredder so they can stop him. But Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady put an end to that. They pull the rug out from underneath them and chuck a globe at him. Man, that's pretty rough. The turtles are never ones to give up, though, So they decide that instead of going in through the building to get to the Shredder, they're going to travel up the building. Now, seriously, NECA needs to make a cartoon accessories pack, and they need to include 4 sets of suction cups. I love these things. These are a very cool item that they use in the cartoon. I think only in one other episode that I've seen, but, still a very cool item. The turtles try to scale the building, but they don't get very far because Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady ram into the side of the building, and that makes them fall off. Back at the Technodrome, Krang learns that the mesmerizer needs to be fixed. So he tells Bebop and Rocksteady to go grab a schematic disc, because he usually says schematic, but I always thought it would be schematic. So they have to grab a schematic disc and take it to the Shredder. Boy, how could this go wrong? Well, first, these 2 bumbling buffoons grab the wrong disc. And then Rocksteady loses the disc after Donatello sends both of them on a ride. Which schematic disc is this? Of course, it's the schematics for Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady. So now Donatello is able to build a remote control, which, he can use to control the super mutants. Up on the roof, Bebop and Rocksteady try to fix the mesmerizer without the schematic disc, but all they do is cause it to turn everybody into dogs. And then, even worse than that, monkeys. And, after this, it's nothing but downhill for the Shredder. Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady are reprogrammed now, and they grab the Shredder and dance with him and totally distract him. Then they blow up without really any explanation. Donnie removes Shredder's amulet, which allows him to turn into a monkey. All the villains fall off the building, and the mesmerizer breaks. Good triumphs over evil, Poor Shredder. This episode is alright, but I mostly just like Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady's robot designs. It kind of reminds me of the good robots from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, because they're kind of big and clunky. I like the idea of these guys being stronger and scarier than the original Bebop and Rocksteady, but I hate how, they're defeated in this episode. Donatello building a remote is fine, that's a good way to defeat them. But, them dancing and stuff, I don't know. It's like the show got way too cutesy and kid-friendly. And I know, I'm an adult, but even as a kid, I wanted more action. I wanted things to be more serious. I wanted more battles. I would rather Donatello use the remote to make them, attack the Shredder, Then the Shredder has to, cut off their heads and push them off the building. Or maybe he just, hits their self-destruct buttons, something cool like that. But this episode just gets way too silly, I also, hate monkeys. As a kid, I always hated when shows would have, a chimpanzee make an appearance, like Full House or any other family show from back then. It's like a focus group told the writers, kids love monkeys, so put a monkey on our show. Kids think they're cute and silly. Well, this kid didn't. I wasn't laughing, and I'm not laughing now. So this is a season 3 episode. So, every shot in this episode looks like it was worked on by a different studio. You know, they probably split these shots up between different companies to try to get this episode out as quick as they possibly could. You know, some of them aren't so hot. You know, some of them aren't the best, but some are really, really nice. Like, you know, and check out like all these different Donatello styles. Like you're watching this and Donatello looks different from shot to shot, you know. I especially love when Donatello is examining the schematic disc. You know, it looks very nice and fluid, you know. It's very expressive. It's almost like it could be like a Disney afternoon show or something like that, you know. Maybe the animation keys were done by different people over here before they sent it out. All right. So let's see how well NECA brought these guys from the screen to our shelves. All right, both of these guys seem to be made up of brand new parts, but there are some parts that are shared between both of them. That means that while they're pretty close to how they appear on screen, only one of them has the correct biceps, and only one has the correct pelvis, and I think thigh. But, you know, it's like I said, it's very, very close. So close that you probably won't even notice it. So let's begin with Super Bebop. Now, you know, here is his head. And of course, it's very reminiscent of regular Bebop's head, right? Almost looks exactly like it, you know, except everything is sort of streamlined and straight-edged. You know, you got the 3 vents on his cheek. The front of his mohawk has a triangle with sort of a, I think that's supposed to be like a screw hole. Maybe it's just a circle. I don't know. And then you have that white triangle underneath his chin, which is actually supposed to look like the skull necklace that Bebop wears. And now here is the action figure. And clearly you can see all of those details, you know. This guy looks awesome. You know, I like it a lot. What I do like is that there's a sort of like a little bit of an extra circle there to sort of make it look like there's a screw keeping this extra piece of ear on there. Like it could almost like hinge. It doesn't, but you know, I think it's pretty awesome that that's there. Another thing I really like is just how his ponytail is like so pointy, you know. It almost looks like he could use that as a weapon, you know, to bash people who are behind him. Here's Bebop's upper torso. I really like the mechanical muscle lines. You know, I think that's a cool little detail. I like his bandolier, which is very similar to the regular Bebop's design. And I even like those like fake mechanical looking lapels on the sides of his jackets. I think that's a pretty nice little touch there, you know. One thing you can actually see on Bebop here that you can't see on the action figure is if you look at the inside of his bicep, you'll notice that there's an oval there that sort of has like wires in it. When you come back to this action figure, you can see that they did not put that oval, you know, that little indent there with those wires on the inside of his bicep. However, you know, everything else is the same in his upper torso. You know, bandolier looks good. Even the details are very similar. He even has like these bands that go underneath his armpits. And, you know, the lapels, the muscle definition, all that stuff is, you know, the same. So as I said, you know, Bebop does not have that design there on the inside of his bicep, but he does have sort of something similar on the outside of his bicep, you know, and you can see that here. If you look at the design on his bicep, you'll notice that it's like a circle. It almost looks like it has like vents going across. And on the forearm, you know, you sort of have this piece of metal that kind of sticks out a little bit and a couple of little dots here, you know, a little square on his wristband there. You can see all that in the cartoon, you know, that's all there. Now, there is a shot where you can see, like, underneath his wrist, and it has, like, little designs on that wristband or whatever. But, you know, I think that's just pretty much for this shot. You know, that doesn't always appear in this episode. One thing that I think is really cool is that, you know, NECA was able to work the design of, like, the inside of his elbows into this toy. Like, here you can see that there's sort of like a wire that connects the bicep to the forearm. And, you know, here you can see the action figure has that, you know. It's cool because, you know, that's how they design their toys anyway, you know. They have that, like, little tiny bit there between the bicep and the forearm. And here they were, you know, just able to work that into the actual design of the action figure. And, you know, that is cool. I really like Bebop's fake turtle shell shoulder pads. You know, they look more mechanical, you know, a little more made out of metal, I guess, than a regular turtle shell. Not to mention those blasters that are sticking out of them. You know, those are pretty cool looking. You can see that he has those in the cartoon. You know, that's cool. He never shoots these, though. Not even once. If you look at his pelvis, you can see that he sort of has like this belt buckle there, you know, with a triangle and a circle on it. You know, who doesn't love that? That's all cool. If you look at his pelvis, you know, his lower pelvis, there is a vertical line there that goes straight down. But if you look at the action figure, he, you know, it looks as though he just has all horizontal lines. You know, so that is a little different. You know, but this, you know, doesn't always appear like this. Sometimes I feel like you look at it and it almost looks like he could just have horizontal lines there. So, you know, the toy is close, you know, it's no big deal. I'm sure nobody even cares, right? All right, so if you look at his legs, you'll notice that there is a band on the top and there's a circle, but it's outside of that band, you know, it's on top of his thigh. On the back side of his thighs, you'll see that there are like horizontal lines that wrap around the leg, you know, on the dark part there. The knee and the shin bone, you know, have that silver, you know, metallic plate or whatever that they're supposed to be, you know, and plus he's got like the robotic shoes, which are hilarious. Now, if you look at this action figure, you know, pretty much all of that is here, you know, it all looks good. His shoes are there. You got the horizontal lines that wrap around the back. The only difference, and this is a very small difference, is those circles are on the band. That's because that's how it appears on Rocksteady's thighs. And if you look at his back, you'll notice that he has a line going down the middle, and then you have like the bolts on the sides, you know, as if it was one piece of sheet metal that's screwed together. And now on the action figure, there you go. You got that right there. But of course, sometimes he doesn't have that line and bolts, you know? So what can you do? All right, so on to Mighty Rocksteady. So let's start at the top and work our way down. Mighty Rocksteady's head looks pretty cool. You know, I think it looks good. I think they did a good job of translating a rhino face into a robotic design. You know, everything still looks pretty sound and still very much rhinoceros. I like the detail on the bottom of his horns, the grid inside of his ears. He has those two teeth on the outside of his mouth, just like regular Rocksteady has. He's got a very prominent brow, and, you know, he's got those cool lines that start at the top of his head and work their way down all the way to the bottom of his snout. You know, that's all good. And if you look at the action figure, there you go. You have all that. You have all those nice little details. And I think they kept the proportions really well, you know. It looks very close to how he appears in the cartoon. Now, there is a shot where, you know, if you look at him profile here, and then you look at this shot, his head is very long. But, you know, don't put too much stock into that. That's just that one scene. If you look at Rocksteady's upper torso, you'll notice that he has a very noticeable white collar. There are 3 triangles on both sides of his collar. There's like pointy tubes that hang over his shoulders, plus like some segmented rings around his armholes. And then if you look at this action figure, you know, you have all that. That's cool. In the cartoon, his pecs are pretty pronounced, and he's got like a tape deck in his gut. And so you could see the toy that, yes, he does have all that. He's got that little tape thing there, these little knobs. I don't know, maybe that's how they turn up how loud he talks. He has guns on the tops of his shoulder blades. And if you look at this action figure, yes, you can see that he does indeed have those guns. Rocksteady's belt is usually the same color as his pelvis, and his pelvis has horizontal lines. The toy makes the belt a darker gray color, and that does appear like that in some shots of the show, so, you know, they are accurate, just not always. And in my opinion, I think that the dark gray looks a lot nicer. You know, it definitely creates a nice contrast in the middle of his body there. It would, I don't know, just having the same color gray just doesn't look as nice. Rocksteady's arms have a circle design on the outside of his biceps. Now here's where the toy uses the Bebop design instead of the actual design. It's just a little different, the style, but it's there. The circles on the forearms are probably a little too big for this, like, I don't know, this armor piece or whatever this is supposed to be. But, they change from shot to shot. His gun arm has two small dots on the top of the forearm. Here you can see that, they match, I guess. The arm laser, or really arm decoration because he never uses it, looks pretty cool. And you can see that the action figure is very similar to how it appears on screen. Very cool, but like I said, he never uses this thing, so what's the point? Rocksteady's legs have a lot of the same shapes as Bebop's, but he doesn't have the horizontal lines on the back of his thighs. And the circles are inside of the bands, on top where the hips connect to the pelvis. Here you can see the toy is right with the circles. You do have the circles in the right spots, but you have those horizontal lines. So, neither of these guys have perfect legs. Rocksteady's feet appear to be robotic animal feet instead of shoes or boots. The toy looks close, but just a little different. Still good, just a little different. Next up is scale. So scale moves around a little bit for these guys. I kind of like how they appear in this shot. They appear to be a lot bigger than Bebop and Rocksteady, and probably close in size to the Shredder. But I think that they're probably closer in size to Bebop and Rocksteady, which, doesn't seem right to me personally, but, to each their own. And the Shredder is definitely taller than them. If you look at this shot of the Shredder dancing with Bebop, he's really bending his knees a lot here to be sort of the same height as him. There are no real clear shots of the turtles next to these guys, which is crazy, I think. So here they are, next to NECA's Shredder. Both of these guys are a little taller than him, which isn't accurate, but, as I said, I'm perfectly fine with this because I like them to be huge, powerful super mutants. But, having said that, I also wouldn't mind it if this Shredder was just, I guess, taller in general. I don't know, he's taller than the turtles, but Bebop and Rocksteady are way bigger than him, which, I don't know. I go back and forth in that. I think if you wanted this to be like super cartoon accurate, maybe Bebop and Rocksteady should be shorter than him. But I do like that they are like hulking next to NECA's Ninja Turtles. They look very intimidating next to them. He's still a pretty decent size next to Leo here. Speaking of Leonardo, they appear, because they are bigger than the Shredder, they're a lot bigger than Leonardo here, which is very cool because, as I said, they appear very intimidating. And, I love that these guys are, huge and scary looking, I think you'll be able to portray the turtles in peril or overcoming a dangerous threat on your shelf when you pose them with these much bigger super mutants. Now here, where they're standing next to regular Bebop and Rocksteady, they're very similar in size, which, as I said before, could be somewhat more cartoon accurate because they should be around the same height as them. But, I don't know. I just kind of feel like they should be bigger because they mess up Bebop and Rocksteady. If you were fighting a robot the same size of you, like the Terminator, he would still mess you up and be stronger than you. But I still kind of think visually it would be cooler if they were a little bigger than them. Mighty Rocksteady and regular Rocksteady have pretty much the same exact, I don't know, it's not necessarily build, but the same mass. Like their torso and everything looks very similar. Mighty Rocksteady's shoulders may be a little more wider, but in general, he's almost exactly the same exact size. Super Bebop, I think his head is definitely bigger, and he has a bigger torso. He's much more like barrel chested or something like that than regular Bebop. So, and his shoulders aren't as dominant looking, I guess, as Bebop's is, regular Bebop. I don't know. What do you think? Which do you prefer? Do you think that they should have just Bebop, Rocksteady, and these guys should be, just all smaller than Shredder? Do you think that the Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady should be bigger than Bebop and Rocksteady? I don't know. What do you think? Just a few things about, when they translated regular Bebop to Super Bebop. I always think it's cool when they do things like this. You're taking an already pre-existing design and you're trying to translate it and change it to make it look into a robot. And people can mess this up, but then other people can really make it look cool. And I think that they really made Super Bebop look pretty cool. Where they just take all the little details and just try to roboticize everything. Even the shoulder pads here. You got the he originally wears these turtle shells, and then they kind of made them sort of like these, almost look, I don't know. When I look at them, I just kind of think of like helmets, but obviously that's not it. But that just kind of reminds me of. And then you add the guns. That's cool. I still like that he still has the glasses. That's just a little funny little Bebop detail. And one of my favorite things is just the shoes. I love that they still try to give him sneakers, but just in with a robotic flair. I don't know. He's definitely a cool guy. With Rocksteady, I think that to me, he is more changed than Bebop is. I think that they were very faithful to Bebop. But, he's got the yellow shirt, but then, the collar, all these rings around his shirts just seem very different. They could have tried to, have a little bit of, robotic gut sticking out the bottom, but it's, it's fine. And then even the feet. He doesn't have any kind of boots. He just kind of has these... It's getting real dark. He's got, these robotic animal feet. So, yeah, he is quite different. One final compare before I get to articulation, and that's the 1993 Robotic Bebop and Rocksteady. Unfortunately, I do not have Robotic Rocksteady. I tried to get him before I made this video, but I missed out on the complete one that I was really trying to get, and then since then I haven't seen a complete one that has been up to the quality that I require. I think these guys are interesting because they didn't come out until after the episode aired. Usually the toys would come first, and then they'd make an episode to promote it. Here, Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady aired in 1989, and these guys came out in 1993. That's quite a gap. But this is also the same year that Playmates released their Toon Wave, which included the other two Neutrinos, a cartoon Shredder, the Channel 6 news team, and not to mention Mona Lisa. Now, I got this picture from TMNT Toy Archive, so you should check that out. I think it's tmnttoys.com or something like that. Playmates was really pushing the line to have more cartoon characters right before it died, And yeah, I know Turtles went on for many more years after that, but come on, TMNT was fading, and the Power Rangers were moving in for the kill. So we'll just take a very quick look at Mighty Bebop next to Robotic Bebop. Now, they kept some of the same details, he has that bandolier, which is kind of has the same squares. You have the circle on the sides. You still have that design on the lapel. He's got the belt here with the triangle and the circle. The backwards play button and the record button is how I usually picture them. The green shoulder pads with the guns. He even has that stupid gun falls out. I gotta super glue this stupid thing. He has that circle on the side of his bicep. Yeah. He doesn't have shoes, though. He doesn't have the sneaks. He's got animal feet. I don't know. He's a pretty cool looking toy. This is one of these Robotic Bebop and Rocksteady action figures are ones that I've always wanted to get. And I just kept on putting them off and putting them off. And now I'd like to get a complete version of him. It cost like over $100, and you know that sucks. I was not happy to have to pull that trigger, especially when it used to be like, you know, like $30, $40, and even back then I was like, oh man, I wish it would go down in price. He is cool too because you can put a light behind. Look at that, the other one fell out. You can put the light behind his hair and it'll light up his eyes. I also really wanted to get these guys soon because, you know, Super 7 has, you know, an upcoming Robotic Bebop. My goodness gracious, I cannot talk today. So, you know, I wanted to get him so that I can have all these guys to compare whenever that Ultimates figure comes out for my Ultimate review. And, you know, now I just have to get a Rocksteady before, you know, Super 7 releases him too. All right, so now we're on to articulation, and that's very exciting to me because, you know, next up will be accessories, and that's pretty much my favorite part. One of my favorite parts of these reviews is talking about all the accessories and just talking about their backstories and all that kind of stuff. So let's try to get through this articulation as quick as possible. So his mouth is articulated. It opens up and closes. My hinge does not work the best. The mouth kind of closes by itself. Just a little bit, but not as bad as my Leatherhead action figure. He has a ball-jointed head. He can't really look up and down too much, but he can turn a little bit to the side. You see, because he has like such a big head, it kind of stops some of that movement a little bit, but you can still move it pretty good. His shoulders can swivel and they have a hinge. You know, these shoulder pads stop that a little bit, but it's not too bad. Then you have a swivel on the bicep. You have double jointed elbows. They work pretty well. You have a swivel for the wrist and a hinge there. Now, he does have some middle torso articulation, but I cannot really get it to move up or down or really spin around. I can't really get this to move that much. He does have a waist cut, so you can get him to turn his waist. His hip joints are ball joints. They move around exceptionally well. You have an extra cut here at the top of the hip, so you can swivel there too, in case your ball isn't, you know, swiveling as much as you need it to. He's got double jointed knees. You have a hinge at the ankle, and you have ankle rockers. So, you know, all pretty good articulation, all stuff you would want for this guy to get him into some nice action poses. And let's quickly move over to... Oh my gosh, I knocked something over. Mighty Rocksteady. I think he pretty much has all the exact same articulation as Super Bebop. You know, the mouth opens. At least it doesn't slowly go back up like my Bebop does. The head can look a little bit up and down, but not too much. And you kind of have the same kind of rotation that Super Bebop has from side to side. Shoulder, same kind of joints. Swiveled bicep, just like Bebop. Double jointed elbows again, same wrist. Again, with the upper torso, I can't really get him to crunch forward or back, but I can get him to at least rotate at the upper torso there. And he also has a waist cut, so you can move it there. Ball jointed hips, just like Bebop. Same cut on the hip here. Same double jointed. I mean, well, yeah, because he's got the same exact legs. All right, let's move on here. So overall, I'm pretty happy with these guys. You know, sometimes variants can feel like, you know, a cash grab, like the company is just trying to milk as much money as they possibly can from you. But here you have brand new sculpts, and, you know, these guys are pretty different. They're completely different characters than Bebop and Rocksteady, so they're not necessarily variants. They're just a very cool take on pre-existing designs. I don't know. These guys are cool, and I'm glad that NECA decided to put them out this year. Now, on to accessories. Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady come with some amazing accessories. And first, we got to talk about these two awesome-looking guns. You know, they're very cool-looking, and they're very unique. And to be honest with you, I can't believe that we even got these guns. You know, they only appeared in one episode of the show, but it was an episode that many Turtle fans have probably watched over and over and over again on tape. These only appear in one scene of the season 1 episode, Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X. That's it. It's the scene when the Shredder opens up the portal to Dimension X, unleashing not only the 3 neutrinos, but the 2 deadly rock soldiers, Trag and Granitor. Bebop and Rocksteady use these weapons to blast Trag and Granitor's ship, and they also have a shootout with the Stone Giants. That's it. These guns don't even show up later in the episode when Bebop and Rocksteady are fighting the turtles in the Technodrome. Bebop's gun is pretty easy to grab screenshots of. Here you can see Bebop is holding the gun by the handle and the clip. The drill bit looks awesome. I guess it's both a long-range and short-range weapon. The crosshairs appear to be in the middle on top, and now here is the toy. Very, very close. In this shot, you can get a better look at the clip, and now the sights are 2 pieces, one on the back and one in the middle. If you look at the toy, obviously there is some different things happening here, but it's still, close. Now here is one final shot. Here, the sight is in the middle again. The gun has the bit you pull back on the side. I don't know any gun lingo or anything like that, so I can't really tell you what that is supposed to be. I guess to cock it or whatever. And here again is the gun. It's, as I said, it's close. The sights keep changing from shot to shot, but it's just a very cool looking gun. I like this thing. Up next we have Rocksteady's gun, and NECA had to take some liberties with this thing because the reference is like all over the place, and there's just not a lot of good shots of this thing. Alright, so if you take a look here, you can see that the 2 barrels sit on top of each other, but there's like this little metal rod between both of them that makes it appear as though they are also side by side. So this thing is, the perspective on this thing is all wonky and weird. I don't know what they were thinking when they were drawing this. Here you can see the toy, and it looks very good compared to that. But the sights on this toy are in the front here. Now this shot right here is a little sloppy, not to mention that there is a gap under Rock's chin that should probably be filled in with gray, where the gun should be. This shot is weird again. The barrels are connected very strange. Like, did they not know what they were doing when they did this? I find it very confusing. These artists knew what they were doing the majority of the time, but why would they draw the barrels like this? I just don't understand it. All right, this one is close, but still, it is off. And, here you can see the gun again, just for some comparing from those screenshots. Like I said, very, very cool looking. Now, this shot right here is probably the closest. However, there's no handle. The barrels look close. The sight up front, the scope up top, plus the light or second scope on the side, that all looks pretty good. To be honest with you, I don't know anything about guns. I just kind of flubbed my way through it. What I think is funny is this is an in-between. The other pics that I've shown are closer to key drawings. The drawings that kind of hold for long points of time. They're the main points of animation, the major poses. This in between here is just supposed to be a quick connect from pose to pose, and you would expect it to be like less detailed and a little warped, but this is actually the best time you see the full gun. So here's the toy again, and like I said, obviously NECA had to do what they could to fill in the gaps here, but I think they did a very good job. It is still a very cool looking gun. And it doesn't have that weird connector bit here to make it look like these barrels are side by side and also on top of each other. I don't know how they could possibly pull that off anyways in actual 3D. So as I said before, I really like the design of these weapons. I think they're very cool. And in my opinion, this Bebop drill gun is inspired by the 1988 turtle shell drill. that was the weapon the original Bebop had, and I feel like this was their way of bringing this design into the Fred Wolf series. Now, when it comes to the Rocksteady gun, I have no idea what this is supposed to be based off of, because the original 1988 Rocksteady came with the Retro Mutagen gun, which was already released. It was in the show. This came with the Triceraton, and this was sort of like Rocksteady's stock weapon in seasons 1 and 2. Pretty much every other episode of season 1, when he has a gun, he uses this thing, and then he uses it in season 2 before the laser blaster and the stun laser rifle kind of take over from seasons 3 to 7. So, where does this gun come from? I have no idea, but it's just a very cool looking gun. That's all I have to say about that. As you can see, Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady can hold these weapons exceptionally well. Their trigger fingers, I guess, especially with the Rocksteady gun, Rocksteady is able to rest his finger right on top of that trigger with no problem. It looks good. The hole where that goes around the trigger for Bebop's gun is a little too small, so you can't really stick his finger in there, but you can at least put the finger on the side of the hole. If you were a huge fan of hot rodding teenagers from Dimension X, and you always wanted your Bebop and Rocksteady to hold these weapons, well, here you go. They can. Their trigger fingers work pretty well, although I would say that their trigger fingers extend like way too far. They're too straight, they don't look like they're actually going to shoot anybody. But, isn't this like, aren't you supposed to hold your gun like this? Like, isn't that what they teach you in the army and stuff like that, so that way you don't accidentally shoot somebody? So maybe Bebop and Rocksteady are more mature than I gave them credit for. To be honest with you, I'll probably have Super Bebop and Rocksteady hold these weapons, just because I'll probably still continue to display these guys with the Retro Mutagen gun and the where the heck is this other thing? This what the hell is this called? The laser phaser for Bebop. So, that is that. I'm just glad that NECA decided to include these with these, super mutants. They're really a blink and you'll miss them kind of item. Speaking of blink and you'll miss them items, here is the parking meter. Now, as I mentioned earlier, everyday items like this can be pretty tricky to track down, because you really have to start to pull apart every single episode, and then you're like, am I supposed to, take a screenshot of every single item the characters, interact with? So thanks, Jeremiah Napier, for bringing this to my attention. Where does this parking meter come from? Well, Bebop uses a parking meter as a weapon in the episode Invasion of the Punk Frogs. He doesn't hit anyone with it, and he only holds it for a little bit until him and Rocksteady run away. And as they run away, Bebop drops the meter, and all the change falls out, and the guys slip on it like a bunch of klutzes. Now, I think that the parking meter is actually a very cool weapon, because it really helps to create the illusion that these NECA Fred Wolf action figures are living in a fully realized world. Once you start just taking these everyday items, it's cool to, incorporate them in your display. As you can see here, Super Bebop can hold this with his trigger finger, and he can also swing it around with his regular gripping hands, although they only included left-handed gripping hands. As a right-handed person, I feel offended, but at least the left-handed people are finally getting something. I mean, right? The detail on this is very nice, and even though it's a realistic item, it still looks very cartoony, because you have that nice black outline on top of everything. I like, you even have like the plate in the back where they open it up to get the money, and where you put the money in and you turn the knob and stuff like that. The glass here, where the meter, where you can see the hand is broken, and that looks nice. And what's cool about that too is it's broken in a different spot. It's not like they used the same mold on both sides. They actually tried to make it unique. You have these two dots here. I'm not really sure why those are there. They're supposed to be like indents from him squeezing it. And I like down here at the bottom, you have the dirt on the bottom. You still have a little bit of the pole sticking through, and the concrete is all cracked. So, this is a very nice, fully realized item. Bebop can also hold the parking meter, but unfortunately his gripping hand is sort of at an angle, so, he just always holds it at an angle like that. Up next is a really cool item from 2 episodes of the cartoon. That's right, 2. Now, I guarantee that even the most hardcore Ninja Turtle fans never noticed the second appearance of this device, but I found it. Finding this device in not 1, but 2 episodes is part of why I love making these reviews. It's like I'm treasure hunting. Both episodes are season finales. First, this device showed up as the polarity deflector in the season 2 finale, Return of the Technodrome. Shredder attaches this to the main control panel at the Niagara Falls Hydroelectronic Station. It sucks out the power and sends it through a portal to the Technodrome. Krang uses the power to fully charge the Technodrome and bring it back to Earth from Dimension X. It's never shown again after this scene, so I assume that once its use was over, the Shredder or Krang took it back to the Technodrome. Seriously, what happened to it? This was a good season finale. I liked the huge army of foot and rock soldiers the guys had to fight. I love how the rock soldiers all look like Trag, but they're colored like Granitor. Not to mention Krang's incorrect colors. The Technodrome gun is almost used, but then it isn't. The cheapskate makes an appearance. There's a cool explosive ninja star. I really like how sleek this explosive ninja star looks. And who could forget the awesome battle between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in the center of the Death Star. And NECA, if you're watching, there's a remote for the turtle blimp. The turtles get giant heads because of the animation goes off model. Donnie changes the frequency of the turtle comm to listen in on the villains, which was never done before or after this. One shot, Splinter throws dust in Rocksteady's face, and he's in front of him. And then one shot later, he's like now on a different plane. I don't understand how that happened exactly. This is a good season finale, which, moves the Technodrome to its next location, the core of the Earth. Once Donnie reverses the seismic polarity of the earthquake machine or whatever the Technodrome is doing to make it just sink and dig all the way down to the center of the Earth. Now you get to see this thing very clearly in 2 shots. First, there's this one, but it's a little different. It's missing the top piece, and in general, it seems a little wonky. Now here, where the Shredder places it on the main control panel, here it looks perfect. All the knobs, buttons, gauges, and bits and pieces all look in place. So, they obviously looked at this shot for their reference. And in case you forgot what this thing looked like, here's the actual toy so you can kind of compare them back to back. Alright, so the very rare second appearance. Now, I'll be honest, I almost didn't catch this, but I decided to log Shredder Triumphant before I started going through Season 6. Why? Well, I was looking at the rifle used by Trag because of the scope. Again, Jeremiah Napier tipped me off about this one, because I was like, I know where these rifles are. I've seen the rock soldiers hold them, but when does it actually have a scope? And he was like, Shredder Triumphant. So I was checking out the whole episode and going through it. But now, I'm going to blow his mind. In Shredder Triumphant, Krang gets the power he needs to raise the Technodrome from the depths of the sea, and he attacks New York City. The guys try to stop him, but they get thrown into Dimension X. Of course it's not long before the guys return to Earth and they figure out how to get rid of the Technodrome. And how do they do it? Well, Donatello reprograms the Technodrome's super portal generator for remote control. That way he can get safely outside of the Technodrome, open a portal, and send the Technodrome back to Dimension X without Krang, Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady. This episode, in my opinion, feels very much like a series finale, even though 3 more seasons came after this. Story-wise, even though it's very different, it really does remind me a lot of Return of the Technodrome from Season 2. There's just something about it that seems similar. You know, you have the full foot soldier and rock soldier invasion, which again is pretty awesome to see. Even all the shots of the portals with the Technodrome remind me of that episode. What I really like in this episode is the battles. Leo actually slices a foot soldier into pieces. They fight some evil Dimension X aliens. The battle with this giant alien is a little underwhelming, but it's still cool. It's still a cool creature, so I'm glad to see it here. There's a really long, awesome fight between Leo, Raph, and the Shredder. This battle feels like it actually has some weight. Even Irma joins in. You know, she gets a pretty nice shot on Krang. Speaking of Krang, he spends a lot of this episode walking around like the kid from A Christmas Story, like I can't put my arms down. The only thing I don't like is the cute alien character, you know. As a kid, I probably would have thought he was pretty lame. So where do you actually see this thing? Well, you see this remote control here that Donnie holds for pretty much the whole shot? Right at the beginning of this, a split second, just like one frame, you can see the front of it. And that is this device. Crazy, right? It's much smaller and it's used for good, but there you go. I win the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles review championship. I don't care what anybody says. You can also see it in this shot, but it's not the easiest to notice because a lot of it is covered by Donatello's hand. It really is a good thing that I decided to watch that episode. You know, I was like so happy when I saw it. I was like, holy crap, that's that thing from the other season finale. And if you don't believe me, seriously, go take a look. 21 minutes, 10 seconds. You'll see how quick that thing goes by. If you were curious, the Shredder, you can see the bottom of this thing when the Shredder's holding it, and there's nothing really there. And you look at the actual toy accessory, and they added like these plates here. That all looks good. That's a nice little detail on the bottom. Overall, this is just a very cool, nice little item to have, whether you want it to be used for good or for evil. Now, getting Shredder to hold this thing is no easy feat. This thing is just way too wide for his gripping hand. I mean, I'm sure you could probably stick it in there, but, you only have one gripping hand for this side, I think, and I wanted to be able to hold the sword without it, like, wiggling and falling out. So I don't really want to stretch out his fingers. Maybe you can fit that in there, but I don't know. Let's see if, it's probably... Like, if you wanted to have it held by Donatello, once again, it is way too thick for that gripping hand. Now, Bebop and Rocksteady, because they have a bigger grip, you can get the Super Mutants to hold this thing just fine. So, there you go. Somebody can hold it at least. Alright, so now onto the final accessory. And last up is this bomb. A time bomb, to be precise. Now, where is this thing from? Well, it is from the Season 3 episode, Mr. Og. In that episode, Krang learns that a formula exists in Dimension Z that can transmute crude oil into liquid hydrogen, the very element he needs to repower the Technodrome. He uses what little power he has to open a portal to Dimension Z for 30 seconds, and that's when he finds Mr. Og. Now, Mr. Og is obviously a spoof of Pee Wee Herman, but he's even more annoying, And as a kid, I loved Pee Wee Herman. I watched Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse with my kids. They liked it a lot when they were little, So Pee Wee lives on, and Pee Wee's Big Adventure is one of the greatest movies of all time, right? So, as I said, Og can be kind of annoying because he's just kind of like the stereotypes of Pee Wee Herman. So, Og eats ancient porcelain, and he also has magical powers, like being able to turn the Technodrome into a pumpkin. Although, I think that all of that is later to reveal to be just like an illusion, Krang makes a deal with Og. He tells him where he can find some ancient porcelain to eat in exchange for the formula he wants. He also tricks Og into thinking that the turtles are evil, of course. So Og goes and starts a fight with the guys, which distracts them from the Shredder, who's gone to an oil tanker to steal 4 million barrels of oil. Now, I do want to mention really quick, and I've been dying to say this in a review of the Pirates, Bebop, and Rocksteady from Turtles in Time, because once I saw this, I was like, oh, you know what? This reminds me of those guys. You know, I bet the game designers were inspired by this episode of the cartoon, you know. Just the hats match those guys, you know. Rocksteady has the captain's hat, and Bebop has the skull cap. You know, to me, you know, you might think that's crazy, but to me, that is very close. I feel like there was definitely some connection here. I mean, remember, bits from the cartoon actually did make it in the Turtles in Time, like Baxter Stockman's energy gun and the concrete monster, or the whatever the hell that thing was called. I can't remember. So the Turtles have trouble dealing with Og at first, but eventually they make a deal with him, you know. They'll take him to the museum so he can eat some delicious Huyu vase porcelain, you know, if he'll tell them what the Shredder is doing.
Huyu vases are from an ancient dynasty, and their porcelain is delicious.
Og tells them, so Leo takes him to the museum. Raph and Mikey go to the ship to stop the Shredder, and Donnie goes home to get the transdimensional portal. Boy, good thing later on in the series, you know, it collapses to a smaller size so Donnie doesn't have to push it around, and then eventually Donnie gets the portable portal generator so he doesn't have to deal with this thing at all. So eventually, Donnie uses the portal to trick Og into getting out of our dimension. And at the oil tanker, Raph and Mikey slip on some oil and fall over, allowing them to be captured. How embarrassing. Shredder ties them up and leaves them for dead next to this time bomb. Is this the last time we'll see the warm-colored bandana teens? Now that Krang has the oil, is it curtains for the Turtles? As Shredder slips away fast, will the guys have a blast? Find out all this and more after the commercial break. Welcome back, Turtle fans. So how does Raph and Mikey get out of this one? Well, Donnie jumps on board, and he hits the bomb into the harbor. Simple, yet effective. You know, I guess some days you really can get rid of a bomb. Just in case if you were curious, Mr. Og tricked Krang in the Shredder. His formula doesn't turn oil into liquid hydrogen. So stay tuned for next time when the Technodrome gang solves the gas crisis. So as you can see, this thing is pretty cool looking, and it looks pretty much just like it does in the cartoon, right? You have the red and the yellow wire. You know, there's not much detail or anything really going on here. It's just a very nice little item that you can, you know, tie up your turtles. Or April. I mean, most likely April. How did April not get kidnapped in this episode? And then the bottom just has this, like, flat area so it can actually stand up. And that is all. It's a very cool looking device. All that we have left for accessories is hands, and that's it. Now, these guys come with a very decent selection of hands, you know, so let's get started here. They both have one right trigger finger hand, all right? So they don't have a left trigger finger hand, they only have a right one. And then they both have a left gripping hand. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to have them hold like two guns side by side unless you can just have it being held in the gripping hand. They both come with a set of open palm hands, or reaching hands, or expressive hands. So you got that. And those are pretty much just mirrored the same on both sides. And then they both have a set of fists for pounding the toidles. And that's it. Real quick, just because I couldn't forgive myself if I forgot to mention this, there are some items that they could have included in this 2-pack. They could have included the remote that Donatello uses to control the super mutants. They could have included the mesmerizer. They could have included the amulet the Shredder wears to cancel out the mesmerizer. And And maybe they could have included one of the schematic discs. But, that's it. And really, you don't necessarily need these things. The Mesmerizer would probably be the coolest one. But maybe they'll include that down the line. So first up, here you can see Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady next to a bunch of the other NECA Fred Wolf action figures. I used to pride myself on trying to show the new toys next to all the different body types that existed in the line. But at this point, we've reached a point now where that's just impossible. There's no way you can do it. There are so many different body types and just so many different characters in this line. It's ridiculous. And it's amazing. This line is one of the coolest action figure lines that I've ever seen. And, I'm glad that I was able to get in on, the beginning. I feel really bad for people who, either have to resort to eBay or just found out about this series late. Or they just have a hard time finding these at Target and stuff like that. And, I'm very annoyed because tomorrow NECA is going to put up their San Diego Comic-Con exclusive 4-pack. At 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And these aren't going to be released in stores. Why do we have to go back to this now? Why do we have to go to these 4-packs are only going to be exclusive to, certain 4-packs are going to be exclusive to conventions. Screw that, man. Put it in the store so everybody can get it. Here they are next to some of NECA's movie Ninja Turtle action figures. Now, obviously, these guys are way different. The contrast here is ridiculous. But maybe you could, if you painted these really nice with, maybe some kind of, some kind of metallic paint or something like that, maybe you could try to make them look like movie costumes. I don't know. Here they are next to some of Super 7's Ninja Turtle Ultimates action figures. They look cool next to them, but the Ultimates, tower over them. Here they are next to some of Playmate's newer Ninja Turtle older but newer Ninja Turtle action figures. If you wanted to know how these guys looked fighting the classic Ninja Turtle action figures, well, here you go. They are very big compared to the Ninja Turtles, but it would be kind of cool to have this shredder build these robotic Bebop and Rocksteady action figures, They're huge and deadly. And that's it. Man, this one turned out to be an exceptionally long episode. I don't know how that happened, but, what can you do? That's just how I am, I guess. I just like to talk and talk. So, I think both of these guys are great, and, they were a really nice surprise. I bet most people didn't expect to see these guys anytime soon. Lots of people love Bebop and Rocksteady, so it's awesome to get more and more variants of these guys. Maybe next we'll get Tourist Bebop and Rocksteady. So, thanks for watching. Talk to you later, and have a good one.